Hello, Vancouver. How are you, British Columbia? What's, oh, you're not on here.
On the church website.
Oh, on the church website. Sorry, I thought I was very excited for a moment.
I did.
We're glad to have you on. For all those that are joining us today with Empowering Pastors, we want to remind you to join in our chat session. Somebody manage the chat so that you can ask your questions, and we know that you'll be challenged. Today's going to be a great study. We've been in the book called The Orange Revolution. The notes are the same from last week for whoever has them. If you didn't get notes and you would like notes, if you just send us an email, we'll make sure that we get them right out to you. Today's going to be more of an exercise kind of day. Want to be able to discuss some things, throw some things around, and generate ideas. So today we're going to begin. I just want to backtrack just a little bit to make sure everybody's on the same page. Get it? Same page. Sorry. I know. I'm sorry. What are you going to do? You know, you got to do your best sometimes. We talked about clarity and clearly visualizing the cause, and how really in today's society, the greatest teams are those that are really working in a relationship. And so what happens is building relationships among your team members is one of your higher priorities. And as a leader, we'll find that most people will be more loyal actually to the people that are on their team than they actually will be to the leadership team. But there's a necessity for the leadership team to integrate themselves into the team to where they are working as one, and loyalty can be more broad than just one or two based. So today we want to talk about, if you'll look up on the screen, we have the diagram that you'll see on your page. And if you look up on the screen up there, it says the light touch of the leader. We touched on that a little bit last week. The first one was the cause. The second one is the wow. The third is no surprise. And the fourth is cheer, which means breakthrough results or sustained success. Now, isn't that what everybody's actually after? Is sustained success. There's nothing worse than peaking and then dying. There is a necessity to make sure that you build the organization into a structure that when the hard times come, you are going to survive. Or if you yourself die, that your organization is going to survive. I was just talking with one of my oversights this morning. We were talking about a situation we're dealing with in our church on growth. And I'll share it with you. It's a really good one. And we can debate it because no answers have really come to conclusion. We bus in a bunch of children from the city, and we minister to them, and we teach them and train them. And it's very exciting. And it kind of happened more on accident than anything else. It started with just 25, 30 kids, and we then it expanded, and we had to split nights because there were so many children. And last Wednesday, they hit their peak. For children 11 years and younger, they hit 147 children. Now, these are kids that are not here on Sunday. These are the children that they're busing in and training and developing who have no spiritual background at all. And so we're really investing in the next generation. Now, the question is we have run out of buses. There's no more room for buses. So we need either renting another bus, which is another $500 a month, and we need more workers. And then we're finding that for whatever reason, church folk don't want to integrate their children with the bus kids. So what do? So we've been discussing and going through all of these questions and how to handle this and what to do with all this. And we have to come back to the cause. We have to come back to the vision. And it's interesting when you're talking to different people, they always give you their viewpoint. And their viewpoint is extremely important. But the necessity to recognize that when you build something, you're building it not for the moment. Now, when I was talking to my oversight, this is what he told me. He said, I saw a church do this where they actually segregated the church kids from the bus kids. And he said it was very successful, a very successful church. And when they when they segregated, what ended up happening was all the church folks still left. He said then all of a sudden, now all the children that they bussed in left. And he said now they had to actually sell their building because they actively created division, and division is never of the Lord. It was very interesting in seeing the perception and seeing the concepts of even how he viewed it and what he has seen. And He showed another one where he said that he saw this youth ministry. They were busing kids in, and they had a youth ministry that went from 100 to over 400 young people, and they actually built another facility for them. But yet they did not contemplate short-term plus long-term. And so they did not prepare for longevity. And when we look at this, sustained success is the necessity of everything that we touch. We should do nothing that is just going to be a short shot and is going to fizzle out and die. We do not want to be shooting stars. We want to be sons and we want to be daughters. We want to shine and continue shining. And so in that church did not prepare for sustained success. And what ended up happening is the actual youth pastor went down the road, who was a relative of the senior pastor, went down the road, started a church, and now that facility is never even used for teenagers. Built for it, but nothing was sustained. So for you and I to recognize that building our team is putting us into a demand for making sure that we have sustained success. That even when we die, when we move on, when something happens, it will continue to go beyond where we are. And we started talking last week about ensuring the right people join the team. And I encourage everybody who has not read that book. Yeah. Everybody know, you all know the book I'm talking about, right? Jim Collins book, Good to Great. Who has not read that book, Good to Great? If you have not read that book, Good to Great, then that is your homework for the next 2 weeks. Good to Great. Now listen, you don't need to read it. You can actually listen to it. Audible.com, they have it, as well as Amazon.com has it. You need this book in your leadership. I was going to say library, but I don't even have a library anymore. I mean, it's all on my iPad. You need this because getting the right people in there is important. Number two, and this is what I want to get into, is translating the corporate goals. One of the main jobs of the leader is constantly bringing the vision before the people. Now, one of the things that Jay had said last week is that even he himself deals with a lot of situations where he's not even sure about everything they're doing because they're stepping into unknown territory. Now, unknown territory is so powerful and so exciting because you're literally bulldozing into new arenas of success. And a lot of people don't like to do that. They just want to stay on what has always been successful for them. But to know that you recognize that stepping into new areas are going to broaden your capabilities as well as give you the greater level of success, because if one area struggles, then you'll have more success going across the board. We had a local blue chip company put a lot of eggs in one basket. And when fiber optics was attached, had issues, that company's stock went all the way down to $1.27. What a massive drop. They had so many things in just one basket, one thing in one basket. So here we are. We've got to make sure that we are willing to step out on nothing to land on something. Everything has to do with faith. But the job of the leader is to make sure that he can convey where they're going. People that don't know where they're going are lost. Blind leading the blind mean that both go into the ditch. You've got to have clarity on where you're going. Now, this morning we were talking about the young people. All of this kind of happened on accident, really. When we were starting to bring in and bus kids, we were doing it for the youth ministry. And like we said, and Brother David sitting here on the front row, he heads the bus ministry. We had almost a bus. That bus broke down all the time. It was donated to us. Had serious issues on a constant basis. He started off just busing in 25, 30 kids. Now every week they're busing in over 200 this last week, over 240 children. It's just phenomenal. But you know what? We didn't sit back and plan that. So to say that I projected that vision wasn't true, but the vision that I am projecting is that souls have to be saved, that we are taking our region back. And I don't mind trying something if it doesn't work, then throwing it away and moving forward in another direction. There's a necessity to make sure that the vision is being cast. But the vision, even though you're casting it, doesn't mean you always have every detail of what's happening. Today we talked about, we have to plan for the future and what we're going to do for the future and how we're going to make sure things are in line for the future. And honestly, I don't know how you could do that, because we don't know how big it's going to grow. We don't know how big and how much facility we're going to need, how many buses that we're going to acquire. We don't know those details. Can you really prepare for them? You can prepare in the sense that the vision being conveyed to those that are on the team is that we are moving forward and that we have got to be willing to shift and to change and to step out on nothing to land on something. We've got to be willing to walk by faith and not by sight. We've got to be willing to say, listen, I'm not going backwards, I'm going forwards. So if we're going forwards, that means we're not staying where we are, we're going to advance. And going in advance means you're stepping into unknown territory. So how do you speak to your team with clarity, yet not knowing exactly where you're going? T.D. Jakes said it the best way. He said, I don't know about you leaders, but there are many times I've gotten in my car to go home after preaching the gospel and the congregation is packed out saying, I don't even know what I'm doing. There are times you don't know what you're doing, but you ultimately know the vision and the direction that you're heading. You must convey that. That is the cause. People love causes. People love causes. People will give to a cause quicker. Someone gave the example, and maybe it was Cody. There's a difference between a generous person and a giving person. Who said that? No, you didn't? I don't know where I picked it up. I found it somewhere. It works. Here we go. There's a difference between a generous person and a giving person. A giving person is usually one who only gives to a cause, something that tugs on their heart. But a generous person is one who tithes. A generous person is one who's willing to give to all situations where they see a need. That is a generous person. A giving person will give only to a cause. Now, I don't know why it is, what's in our psyche that stirs us to a cause, but everybody is stirred to a direction of a cause. And now, for me, doing these trainings, the cause was simple. I need my staff trained. From there, it developed on to different different people and business folks, as well as folks all over the United States. So the cause grew, but the cause was necessary because I knew we had to train our leaders. When you grab a hold of a cause and put a cause in front of your team, then you're stirring them to action. I don't know about you, but one thing I have found about real leaders is they love new stuff. You ever seen a leader that gets bored quick? Are you a leader that gets bored quick? I get bored quick. I love new challenges. I love to see something that everybody says can't be done. Let's get it done. I love that kind of challenge. But there must still be the base cause. So for us, we do three things at His Tabernacle Family Church. We love God, we save souls, and we develop leaders. That's what we do. And in that, even with the kids that we're busing in, that's not something we planned, but it matured into. Now we have got to look at all the areas. That's part of the cause. Why? Because we're changing the region. We're seeing souls saved. The only way to stir people is to get them involved in the cause. So now I have a job to do. And we talked about it this morning. We need more helpers. We need about 8 to 10 leaders, passionate people who can grab a hold of the horns and make it happen. And then we need probably 12 to 18 people that are willing just to be helpers within the rooms. We need people to be on the buses. So that's a serious problem because you need workers to make things happen. So now I have a job to do. My job is to take the cause to the body of Christ and get them to become part of the team. Because the more they are part of the team, the more they buy into the cause, the more they're willing to give their time, the more they're willing to give their finances, the more they're willing to give their passion. David, who's over the bus ministry, has how many men working with you now? 4? 3 or 4? 3 men working with him now. They work how many days a week? 2 days a week. Now we're talking, these are men that sacrifice their time to be there for 2 days a week. They get no money, no remuneration. They're there driving bus. And why? Because they believe in the cause. And they're now part of the team. People will join the team that they believe the cause for. Now, facilitating rules was the next value of teams that excelled. what I want to do today is I want to do a little let's talk it through. Each one of you are part of some level of team, whether it's in church or whether it's in business, you're part of a team. And I want to talk about different rules that you have either invoked, wished were invoked, or have activated that have made the team more cohesive, flowing as one rather than fragmented. So today I want to just talk. And everybody online, if you'll make sure that you get right onto the chat and send the information, send your ideas or send what you've learned to the chat, you'll find that we'll make sure that we put that up on the board as well, because you're participating even though you're not in the room. So make sure you send that to the chat. Somebody's manning that right now. Someone give me one rule within a team that you find is mandatory.
Communication.
Communication.
That's good.
Now, what does that mean? If you were setting rules, what does it mean, communication? Because that's very broad. What does it mean? What kind of rules would you put on communication?
Routine meetings.
Routine meetings. I hate meetings.
Time deliverables for projects and requests.
Time deliverables.
Expectations.
Expectations. Somebody else on communication.
Someone online said positive attitude.
Positive attitude. Actually, let's do that down here. Positive attitude. I had to think it through. Isn't it horrible? Now, I remember when we had our worship team. Sadly enough, I was the head of the worship team, and it is a little terrifying. But as I was head of the worship team, that was in our rule book. That if you came with a bad attitude that day, we sat you down. It was just part of the rule book. So come on, somebody else give me rule setting that you would like to see or have on one of your teams. Availability. Okay, come on. As part of a team, what are rules that you would like to see adhered to that would keep it together instead of imploding?
Training.
Very good. Training.
You could even say training / coaching. Slash Phil.
Okay.
Follow through or follow up.
Follow through or follow up. Now, here's the question. Now, we're putting these down. These are rules. With every rule, there must be a negative response or a negative recompense if the rules are not followed. So what would you write down for if you were sitting down with your team and saying, you know what, we're developing these rules as a team to keep us cohesive, to keep us flowing with the cause, and if these rules are not followed through with, then what should be the recompense?
Fired.
What's that?
Fired.
You're fired? Wow, that's a harsh one. Fired, okay.
It depends if it's at your job or if it's in the ministry. It's kind of hard to fire somebody in the ministry.
Not really. You can fire somebody in ministry. So give me your thoughts.
Do we? Do we?
What's that?
Do we for volunteers though?
Yes, we do for volunteers.
Somebody online suggested 10 lashes.
10 lashes, all right.
Wow.
40 less more. Demotion.
Demotion,
Suspension without pay.
suspension,
Probation.
Burpees.
Come on, give me some ideas. Now listen, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about actually developing your teams, developing the people that you are working with who are going to make the cause either successful or unsuccessful. And that really is the bottom line. The team that is developed is either going to bring success to the cause or failure to the cause. There's nothing in between. You can say that you're kind of like in neutral. It's not possible. You're either succeeding or you're failing. So these are the kind of things that you don't usually see happening in the boardroom. Hi guys, what rules do we want to set up for each other? But yet, we presume them. We believe in them. We actually hold people to them even though they're not written rules. So what rules? Come on now, we've got 5. What other rules would you put down for your team?
We put trust
As a rule?
all day.
Okay. Trust.
Maybe accountability.
Yep. Accountability. Now let's break these down.
Team building. Without that, you don't have trust. You could also put team building / relationship building.
These are great ones. Here we go. Positive attitude. What happens if somebody comes in without a positive attitude?
Send them home.
What's that?
Because you fired them.
You slap them in the face.
Send them home. Send them home.
This is important. Now, I know that we can do a lot of fun. Send them home.
Sit them down and talk to me. See what's going on.
Okay? Where there are rules, but there's no negative response when you break the rules, means there are no rules.
It's called rewarding poor performance.
And let's be honest, in the church realm, this is really normal. Is it good? No. But is it normal? Yeah. How about the business world?
It's normal in the business world too.
It's normal in the business world too?
Rewarding poor performance. 8 o'clock meeting starts. Everybody has to be there by 8 o'clock. 3 people get there 5 minutes to 8. 2 people get there a quarter after, but they waited to start the meeting because they needed these 2 people there. So they rewarded poor performance to just be late. We'll still wait for you. But the people that were there on time are getting, you know,
And let's ask, what are the people on time thinking?
I'm coming late.
I'm coming late?
And those
Disrespect?
other people are not trustworthy or reliable.
They're not trustworthy or reliable? Whether you like it or not, every action creates a reaction. Every action on a team puts us in the position to where we're either going to, with the rule setting, build a team that will trust or destroy the team. Yes.
Let's go back to something that you said, because you've been passionate longer than me, so I'd like to get your insight. When there are rules, but there are no repercussions for the rules being followed, then there are no rules. So how do we balance that out with grace and mercy, along with the fact that if you just abandon all the rules, your team will stall out, and that's where friction and conflict arises.
This is one of the greater challenges of pastoring because it's different from regular working secular work. Secular work, when you fire somebody, you're going to hire somebody. In the Christian world, when you fire somebody, you've now affected everybody that you have given them authority to touch. Now, you might lose some people going to energy. You might lose some people going to cleaning and in all the different things that you do, and buying and printing. You might lose some of those customers because you let that person go. But at large, it's not a massive impact. Majority-wise, you just got a few. But in the church world, it's a little bit different. Let's take a church that runs 50 people, and now you've had to take one of your leaders and let them go. Well, they have 6 family members in the church. Well, let's bring the equation there. So now you've gone from 50, you've just lost 6 plus the one that you let go. Now you're down to 43 people in the church. Now 4 of those were tithers, and they tithe on average $100 a week. So there's $400 a month, $400 a week. That is how much a month? $1,600 a month. How much a year? $20,000 a year. How much?
$20,800.
$20,800 a year. Wow, good brain. $20,800 a year out of your budget of $50,000. How much does that affect you? This is where a lot of pastors are. This is why the rewarding of bad actions is something that usually isn't acted upon in ministry, because it literally affects the bottom line. And we all want to be really super spiritual and say, well, glory to God. But the fact is that if there's no money to pay the bills, somebody's leaving. Or everybody's leaving, or the building's closing. Yes.
But may I jump in and say this, sir?
A little bit louder, man.
In my mid to late, well, hey, I am that old. So in my 30s, I had to come to a realization that I've got to be willing to lose people.
Absolutely.
I have to be comfortable with losing people, because watch this. If I allow the cancer to stay, it will kill me faster than it will probably kill what we're trying to do. And so I had a singing group at one time, and we were doing some traveling and trying to record, and I knew what the cancer was, but I didn't want to get rid of the cancer, because I kept saying to myself, I got to start over and teach these parts and find new people and be reliable, but it was killing me. So I finally had to say one day, you know what? If I allow this cancer to stay, I will be the one that will die with the vision in me.
Yes.
Because the other people don't carry the vision.
Right.
It's in me.
It's in you.
So it's my responsibility to protect what God has given me.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I had to risk and be comfortable with the fact of saying, if the vision is in me and God has given me responsibility on what he said, then wherever I go, I should be able to flourish.
And you should.
No, I will flourish.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to flourish.
Yeah.
Because the songs are in me.
Exactly.
The person.
That's the vision.
They're riding my coattail.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm comfortable with saying, you know what? I can cut you, not because I want to, but you have programmed me to cut you.
Right.
So that we can still go on with the vision, so that at the end of the day, God will always be an increase. Because here's the thing I told God. We can't preach about faith and we can't apply it when it comes down to say, hey, here's the money issue, here's the this issue. I had a drummer one time, and I'm going to cut it off with this.
Okay.
I had to fire him, and I didn't say, oh, I'm just going to fire you. I took him to, hey, you don't make rehearsals on time, you don't do this on time, you don't know the music when we show up, you do this, you do that, you do that. And this is before the firing. We had pre-warned him.
Right.
We're going to give you a few weeks to get together. Well, when he got fired, he still showed up on Sunday thinking he's going to get a check and play drums. And I had to go to the pastor and say, hey, I'm going to tell you now, if he comes to the drums, I'm going to put something on him in church because we did it the right way.
Right.
Of course, he goes and tells people, hey, you know, Johnson's not this, Johnson's not that. But at the end of the day, I said, if anybody wants to sit down and talk about the way we handle this, then you ask him, ask me, we can have an open floor meeting. It cut that thing totally out because we did it the right way. We cannot keep cancers around.
You can't.
Because it spreads.
Yes.
So I don't think it's different in the world or in the church. I think actually we gotta be man up and just say, hey, am I willing to see what God has given me die in my lap?
Right.
Or am I just gonna say, hey, your 20,000 will be gone, but guess what? God will always send the increase when the bad cancers are there. He didn't stop the children of Israel when Koresh was rebelling.
And let's be honest, as much of a truth as that is, that's still where a lot of ministers and a lot of pastors stumble.
So where's their faith, Pastor?
I don't know if it's as much faith, because a lot of them, well, first of all, a lot of them have been taught faith.
Okay, all right.
But second of all, it deals with when your whole life is wrapped up in 15, 20 people.
I'm gonna be quiet because this.
No, because what you're thinking is what you're thinking is absolutely correct.
I know what you're saying.
But it's still where they are.
Yeah, I get it.
It's still where they are, and that's where we have got to make determination that we will lose people. You're going to lose people no matter what. You're going to lose good people. You're going to lose people that you wish were left a long time ago. But the truth is, you're going to lose people. But this right here helps those people on the team not stay. How many businesses have a rule setting? I know we don't, and we're going to. Remember I told you we're metamorphosizing. I'm learning some really good things, and this is one we're going to have within our own team. We're going to set up rules within our own team. And not only rules, but we're going to set up recompense. So how many businesses here or online or churches online have rule setting within your teams? Yeah.
Not officially like that. Like our biggest one is because our teams will compile of multiple different levels of management, workers, I mean, a whole bunch. And the biggest thing we do is just there's never any complaining down. It's awful easy for the managers to sometimes, some of our hourly guys, they love a shoulder to cry on, and they'll start complaining about other workers or other members of the team that are below them. That's one of the worst things. It'd be like you complaining about one of the members of your team to another member of the team. You wouldn't do that. That's
Right.
the fastest way to rip apart a team. So that's our main rule of, hey, you only complain up, because complaining down is not going to fix the people below you. Can't really fix the problems you're having, so you always complain up.
Very good. Somebody else. Who doesn't have one? Never complain down. I write like I sing. Anybody else? How about online? Does anybody here have rule setting with your team?
I think boundaries would be good.
Boundaries?
Yeah.
What do you mean by boundaries?
Knowing where your boundaries are and what you are responsible for and what you're not responsible for. So that way you don't get your hands involved in things that maybe don't have anything to do with you. Demarcations, as Pastor Johnson would say.
Okay?
Another thing that pops up all the time too is setting those boundaries so that the people of the team know who's got the final say or who's got what say. I mean, some of the guys are always running to me trying to tattle on their manager or get them in trouble or, hey, they did this or they did that. And I'll make sure that I never go against or never side with them. I'm like, look, they're trusted to do a job. I got to trust they did. That was their best thinking at the right time. And the minute you start overriding a manager or taking sides with somebody else,
in trouble.
so letting everybody in the team know that, hey, you might not agree with that, and I might not agree with him, but they'll never know that.
Right.
I'll never let them know that I disagreed with it. I'll pull him into private, but I'll never override a decision or.
We see
That'll
that in the
cause
scripture.
Turmoil, a lot of chaos.
You got to cover your leader. Where do we see that in the scripture? With Noah. Very good. Remember when Noah got drunk, naked in his tent? His one son looked at him. What happened? He was cursed. And the other sons covered him. They backed up. They didn't look upon the nakedness of their father. And therefore, they were honored. The uncovering cursed. The covering honors. Come on, give me another rule. What would you want a rule? What rule would you want? Yes.
One rule that I had where I used to work was do not bring a complaint without a potential solution. Even if the solution does not work out, do not waste my time with merely a complaint. Do not thought through a potential solution.
Come on, give me another one. What rules would you want? You could say, this is the thing I hate the most, and I'd like a rule against it on the teams that I've worked with in the past or now. What would it be? Online. Anybody?
Must stay proactive.
Must stay proactive. What does that mean?
You have to be thinking future. So in other words, where you were talking about the idea of you may not know whatever ABC, XYZ. I'm just one of those guys. I gotta stay proactive. I gotta see in the future before we start talking about the future.
That's good. Okay.
Clear chain of authority.
Pastor.
Look, the line of authority right here.
Okay.
Good. Yes.
Ms. Garland has one.
No,
What?
I have nothing.
I don't have.
She has nothing.
Now, it's really easy to sit down and say, these are the rules that I want to see. But now we kind of did some funny stuff, 10 lashes, fire them immediately. But what type of penalty would you issue as a team? Because remember, this is talking about team here. All of a sudden, you're on a team and somebody has been given a responsibility that literally is mandated to make this project work, and they just simply say, well, I didn't get a chance to do it, or I didn't get to it, what would be the penalty for that type of action?
So I see it in 3 phases. Phase 1, and it boils down to just having a documentation. When you want to reprimand someone, you need to have a piece of paper or whatever in which they got beforehand that has these are the 10 things you're supposed to do, or this is what is expected of you. For the first time you meet with them, you just go down that line. You were supposed to do this, this, and this, and you did not. Let's talk about why you missed that mark. Where did you go wrong? And go with data and quantitative. When you want to reprimand somebody, a qualitative reprimand does not work. They're not just going to be up for interpretation. But once it's quantitative, they cannot go against that. So phase 1 is really just to reset based off of what was said. Number 2 is to give either it be a financial reprimand or something from the works standpoint in which no longer do you have that comfort of your role. Either be you are suspended without pay for a week, or that you have to move to a smaller office, or you have to go and do grunt work that you are more qualified to do. Something that they will feel that pain in which if I just did what I was supposed to do, I wouldn't be here. And then phase 3 is termination. So it just gets from the start is you now understand what you missed. And then if you do it again, there's a penalty. If you do it again, then you really don't care to be.
And that ultimately is the corporate design for termination. Now, we live in a state called New York, and in New York, it's no fault, right? Is that what they call it? No fault, no.
At will.
At will. So we can fire somebody without having to do any of these things. But when you do corporate, when you go to corporate seminars, this is the process of teaching that they do. They teach you to do all 3 of these in process. Now, we're talking within your team. So who's going to do the reprimand?
Well, it depends on what Jay said. I mean, he has tiered leadership, and depending on how they have it set up, 9 times out of 10, when I was in my position, I did the reprimand. If it got to the place where there was something where the same passion needed to address something, then we had a clear understanding. He would take it from there, and he would do what he had to do. But 9 times out of 10, when it came to firing, that was me.
The leader corrects. So even though you have all these rules, there still has to be an understanding. These rules were created by the team. That means your team sat down, said, these are what we're going to do. This is what we're going to expect. This is the process of discipline. What happens many times within a team that causes an emotional friction is when somebody on the team decides that they want to be the one to reprimand and keep throwing it in the other person's face. And this has to be part of the agreement when we're dealing with setting up these rules, is that when it's time for correction, it can only come from the leader within that group. It cannot come from your brother. It cannot come from the guy you hang with. It has to come from the leader. Now, when that is set and established, that will eliminate infighting. It eliminates people looking at each other and saying, well, you didn't do your job. Well, you know what? You should be fired. Well, and all of a sudden, everybody's throwing in your opinion. Your opinion really doesn't matter. What happens is when we set these rules up within a team, you're actually establishing success within the team. Now, I do this same process in premarital counseling. And there are 3 main reasons for divorce. Do you know what they are?
Yes.
Women, women, and women.
Women, women, and women. No.
Money, sex, stepchildren.
Money, sex, and stepchildren. Stepchildren are a huge reason for divorce. And so what happens is the children will look at the step-parent and say, you're not my mother. You're not my father. Who do you think you are? Don't tell me what to do. And ultimately, they don't see you as their authority. So the necessity of setting up what we call a discipline chart is this process, where we actually tell everybody, set your kids down, set the children down at the table, come up with a list of rules. If you don't do your homework, this is the rule. This is the discipline. If you don't do the dishes, this is the discipline. If you are on your computer past a certain time. So the kids actually help you, the team actually helps you set up the rules of the household. And then they also set up the correction of the household. They actually sit down and help you write down what's going to happen if they don't obey it. And then what you do, you have them sign it. But when it's time for discipline, Susie has no right to come after Johnny. It's mommy or daddy that disciplines Susie or disciplines Johnny. So setting up this rule thing can be extremely inflaming in a negative manner if you don't do this proper. Yes?
How do you, you're touching on like the $1 million question, because just like certain things don't motivate everybody, like money doesn't, time off is more of a motivation for some people than money and vice versa. It's the same thing with discipline. Man, I wish there was one magic answer. Some people, some of our employees, if you suspend them for a day or two, that's the end of the world. They can't make pay. They can't feed their, like, that's a big deal to them. Other guys, it's a vacation. They're happy. You know what I mean? Literally, so Chad, Cody, and Corinne, they get suspended from school. One might be mortified. The other might be, this is great. You know what I mean? But
that's what it was.
And we have to, I mean, there's just, we discipline everybody a different way. Like, to send them home they love it. Others to not get paid is fine. They don't.
All right, let's talk about
everyone on the team.
Let's talk about diverse discipline. So how do you set that up? Does each person says what hurts them the most? Because here's what you do when you're dealing with the stepchildren. So if you don't do your homework, what should mommy and daddy do with you? Just tell me not to do it again. They're never going to give you real discipline.
That comes back
That's up
to
to the leader to think. Oh, sorry.
So the leader, but here's one thing that's a challenge. If the leader is not willing to follow through with discipline with everybody, then what does the rules actually mean?
I think it comes back to the relationship you have, because if you can even say that diverse discipline, you can even say diverse reward. The opposite side of discipline is reward. What rewards you might not reward me. So it goes back to the leader needs to be a strong enough leader to know their team players, to know what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them, what can be used for discipline, and what's effective for discipline.
It's exactly true. And I think this is what I really love about today's class, because we can actually talk some of these things through. Now, the other factor is this. It's not just talking this through, because we're looking at the cause. You can have a cause, but if you have no team, then you're not going to get the cause done. So we're talking about the team that, let's be honest, one of the greatest destructions of every team is the division within it. It's not division from outside. And we prove that in the scripture. You know, in the scripture, the greatest attacks on the church have always been the greatest propulsion of the church. Persecution wasn't destruction for the church. It was actually the lighting of the wick for the church. And so what happens with the Trojan horse is that the destruction came from within. What happens with division that Paul talks about, he says, mark those who cause division amongst you. The reason you mark them is because they're the ones that the devil will use to destroy from within. So when you write down all of these rules and you look at them, listen, you said these rules because they're important to you. Some of these rules are more important than others according to each individual. But there has to be a discipline. There must be discipline. If a person doesn't understand what they'll be disciplined with, now I'll take my children for example. Chad Michael, he was one where if you sent him to his room, honestly, he could care less. He really did not care. But if you touched his bank account, ooh, he was upset. One day he went out and he took the downspouts. He took every downspout, you know, the ones that extend away from the house, and he crushed each one. Spanking him would have done nothing. But you know what I did do? He paid for each one of them. Now, Cody, he's such a people person that extracting him from a sport was crushing to him. That was something that really bothered him. And so knowing each person, but if the person doesn't know, so here's my question to you.
They couldn't get any correction.
They just asked about my daughter being corrected.
The boy
I'm
said
not-
no.
I'm not involved. So let's move on. So the question is, here's my question to you, the team. If these are the rules you've set up, and diverse discipline is the greatest way to bring forth retribution for disobedience or the lack of following the rules, yet the person doesn't know the discipline, how do you establish with each team member what their discipline will be? Because if they don't know the discipline, then there's no need for them to follow the rules. How do you do it?
Through relationship.
So if it's not written, though,
Well, it's got to be written. Absolutely.
what's that?
Can you restate the question?
I'll restate the question. If these rules are what the team is setting up to have cohesiveness so that there'll be unity and passion and drive to accomplish the cause, we know that these are what the expectations are. They are written. They are talked about. This is where we're going. This is what you must do to succeed on this team. Yet they break the rules. We have diverse discipline. How does each one know what the discipline will be in their life if they choose not to come in with a positive attitude? If they choose not to have accountability? If they choose to complain down instead of up? How will they know what their discipline will be? Yes.
So I think within the corporate setting, that really doesn't matter because it's just X, Y, like this is what's going to happen. But I think when you have the diverse discipline, that conversation happens in step one.
One or two?
In step one. This is the documentation. This is where you have failed. If you fail again, this is what we're going to do.
Okay. Everybody agree with that?
You can't wait till step two.
Okay.
Because step two is the discipline.
Here's the discipline.
So you can't wait.
And each person is different.
Right.
So how is each leader supposed to know how to discipline each person? You should know your people.
That's the relationship.
And I would say we're like a hybrid of it too. There's certain things that are non-negotiables. You don't do this, you get that. You break this, you pay for that.
You don't show up for work?
Yeah, there's certain things that are that, but then there's the things that don't, that just pop up and that, you know.
John,
Mostly
Oh, that's
behavioral.
good.
John Wooden,
Speak up, sir. Speak up.
John Wooden, 10-time NCAA national championship coach, one of the best coaches of all time. He said when he was learning discipline, he actually disciplined the best kid on his team. Kid had a D1 scholarship loaded up, and one of his rules was if you are caught smoking, you're kicked off the team for the rest of the season. And he caught the kid smoking, kicked him off the team. The kid lost his D1 scholarship because he didn't play his senior year. And he actually ended up being like a homeless drug addict. And he said because he was so strict on the rules and not personally adapting things, that he like took that to the grave, that he ruined that kid's life in a D1 scholarship. So it has to be knowing your people.
But so that I get, but
A little bit louder, sir.
that I get, but on the flip side, similar thing happened in my high school, and the top 3 soccer players, they were all benched, and they went to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. So I think it just is going to depend. At what point do you say the rule is a rule versus, maybe, like this person, per se, they may need, like a little bit more love. You just have to just be very wise in understanding how your people are. But those 3 kids, them being benched, meant that it went on their record to the schools that would have given them a scholarship to play. So now they went to those schools, but their parents had to pay. And that's huge. That's a huge price.
Well, that's a huge penalty.
You got caught smoking, you sat down. Now your parents have to shell out $250,000 just for you to go to a good school. I'd probably rather be homeless.
Well,
That's a hard one.
here we are. Because when they did the studies in this book called The Orange Revolution, the highest level teams always had this. They always had rule setting. And they always sat down and they worked it through as a team. And there were always, because whenever you have a rule and there is no retribution, it isn't a rule. So the question comes down to is, how many of you would be willing to implement this into one of your teams? And if not, why? And if yes, why?
I believe rules are needed to get the best. Rules are needed, for me, personally, rules are needed to get the best out of people.
Okay?
It eliminates the idea of being mediocre or average. It lets you know that when you show up and you're going to work alongside of myself, we're bringing out A game. We're not bringing out B game. It's like my ex-coach, Coach Marshall, told us. He says, when you show up to practice, if you get here 5 minutes till practice time, I'm considering you being late. And so with that being said, not only did it set a discipline in us, but he was saying that when you get to practice, I want your A game. I want you to be mentally prepared, emotionally prepared, physically prepared. In other words, you're not just showing up to play, but you're thinking about it. You're chewing on it. You're prepared. When we hit that floor, you can leave everything out there. So that's kind of been part of my DNA.
So that's something that you will set up. Excellent. Somebody else, yes.
What's everyone's thoughts on, like Cody, bending the rules? I don't know if I agree with, man, the minute you make an exception for one, you're owned for everyone else. Like if that's a rule, I feel like that coach did the right thing. They knew up front what it was.
Yep.
They broke it. Hey, it stinks that it ruined his life, but we struggle with that. We just had to let, I would say one of our top, in my eyes, one of our top 3 most, just a great employee, is he failed a random drug test. And it's marijuana. And then you go into the whole, well, it's legal. And most day, like, got in this huge discussion. I'm like, look, that's our rule's been forever. Man, that killed. That hurt. Because he was good.
He was good.
Yeah. But I mean, I would have loved to have made some sort of exception like we thought of. And then it literally came down to the point, I'm like, look, if it was so-and-so, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
Right.
But because it's so-and-so, we're having this conversation, that's not fair.
Right.
You're like, is he work? You know, it's.
And like you, I agree that Wooden did what he did.
Right.
Because the moment you bend, and that's what I found too, the moment you bend for somebody, you got to bend for everybody.
So he said long term what he would do is he would let the team come up with a punishment. He would let the team come in. So he had another kid walk out of practice, and the kid decided he wanted to continue to play. So the team came up with a punishment. If you're going to play with us, if you're going to earn our trust, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't do it, you're not back in. If you do it, we're more than welcome to have you back in.
So let's take Wooden's mindset. So are you saying that the team that sets the rules should be the team that creates the punishment?
In that case, in the case he's given, he's saying he would have allowed them to do that. But I take it even a step further. It was not Wooden's fault the kid went homeless.
Right.
There was an inner problem that was going on. Yeah. And of course, and if you know anything about sports, if they took away the D1 scholarship, you can transfer and go sit out a year, whatever the case may be, and then or opt for the draft or whatever. I'm not trying to buy that. Right. I'm sorry. I think if you bend that freaking rule,
right,
you mess it up for the whole entire staff.
Right.
And if you want, and watch this, and if you want to be a winner,
it's right.
I'm not to say anything else behind that.
I gotta agree with you.
We got agreement. Yes. So let's go over here first because she hasn't said anything yet. You gotta be louder, huh?
So when the rule is bent for somebody,
you're not louder.
When the rule is bent for somebody, that's where I feel like a lot of it is. What do you do then? Because everyone on the team does know when rules are bent.
The moment the rules are bent, then you've lost your rule setting.
Yes.
You now have lost all stance that you have.
Yes.
And that is when your team comes in setting these rules, there has got to be a clear understanding. We are in this for the cause. We are in this to win. We're in this to have sustained success. Which means if you choose to break these rules, and when I do this with the stepchildren, I always let the parents say this. If the stepchild breaks the rule, you look at them and you say, let me take you to the refrigerator. You see this rule? This is the rule. You see what you chose not to do? Now this is the retribution. Don't blame me. I'm not the bad guy here. I did nothing wrong. All I'm doing is holding to what you agreed with. See your signature?
I was going to say, look at your team that you really love, the Patriots.
Yes.
They don't keep any kind of foolishness around that team.
No.
Why? Because they're winners.
Yes.
And from the top to the coach all the way down, they create an atmosphere of knowing that when you come to this team, whether you're not going to make the big money or the little money, everybody here is guaranteed of winning.
That's right.
And that's something that they created. And watch this. When you create that type of rule setting or you put those things in place, even if I don't like the Patriots, I respect them.
Right. Ooh, come on now. Pastor Obi, you were next.
So going back to what Jay had
A little bit
said,
louder, sir. No.
going back to what Jay had said, what do you do when it would be advantageous to your business to bend the rules for that one person? I think that when you set up your rules up front, you're gonna set it up in two ways. The first one is your non-negotiables. If you do this, here's the reprimand. It does not matter who you are. The second set is this is the rule, but you don't put a actual reprimand. You then talk about that once they have to go under their diverse discipline. So it could be if you fail a drug test, you are fired. It could then be if you are late, there will be a reprimand. That reprimand might be financial, it might be no time off, something like that. But I think we as a head, we have to figure out what are our non-negotiables and what is that. We don't care if you are the top person or if you're at the bottom, because at the end of the day, if we want to win, we cannot play.
Now, is that designed by the team or is that designed by the leader?
I just come from a different background, that it's the leader.
That's the leader. This book says it's the team. Yes.
I'll tell you what we ended up doing with this one employee, and it probably was because he was such a great employee that we got together as a team and kind of came up with, hey, we agreed that since Colorado and the legalization of marijuana and everything else, maybe our rules needed reviewing. We didn't deviate from one rule. He was fired instantly. We did put in an addendum in our employee handbook, and it's good for every employee that you'll be terminated instantly. You can put yourself through a state-sponsored SAP, substance abuse program. Upon completion of that, then you can be eligible for rehire. It's because we do want, like if somebody has a true problem, they can, on their own dime,
Right.
And like with this one employee, that really went, if they're willing to put themselves through to make things right,
Right.
they value their job just as much as we value them.
They want
And he
to win.
did. He put himself through. He's going through this. He is eligible. You know what I mean? So he did that, and that made him even better.
Yeah.
Because now he's like, wow, these guys gave me a chance.
Yeah.
But we also helped him. You know what I mean? It could have been a more serious drug. Not that marijuana isn't, but it could have been something really bad that we got him off. So we thought that was a good.
Awesome. That's really good. My question is would you be willing to do this because every team has layers? Are you willing to do this now we're going to do this as His Tabernacle Family Church with our own staff, but are we going to do this with the team that we're building under us? Well, Pastor, a lot of our team are volunteers, and if they're volunteers, we can't expect the same amount out of them. And I've always found that right there is a bad mentality, because people only rise to the level of expectation that you have. So if you always consider that because they're volunteer, and I know because I made this mistake for many years, that if their volunteer status puts you in a position where you have no expectation, then ultimately they're never going to rise to a level of success that God has called them to do. Because let's be honest, they're not going to be rewarded for getting a paycheck. They're rewarded for, well done, thou good and faithful servant. It's the faithfulness to the team, faithfulness to the cause, and our cause is that none should perish, but that all should be that all should repent. So we must come to these conclusions, and I want to challenge you to sit down with your team. I know we're going to establish this with our team, and our team is going to sit down and go through this and create this and create the process. We're going to do this because after reading this book, I find that it is one of the greatest processes of keeping cohesiveness as well as infighting out. Because again, when one does not do their job, then the others don't respect them. And if they don't respect them, they're truly not unified with them. And if they're not unified with them, then they will not move forward. If the white elephant is standing there staring you in the eyeballs, You cannot want to talk about it all you want, but it's still staring you in the eyeballs. You've got to be able to deal with this. And according to this process in this book, which I really enjoyed this book, like again with every book, we all know this, we talked about it many times. You don't take everything from the book, but if you can get one principle from every single book that you can apply to your company, your business, your ministry, your life, then that is ultimately a phenomenal book. Just one principle. Just one. And this is why I always push you to read. I always push you to study. Because if you can get 12 different principles from books that you're reading for that year, then your style of leadership, who you are as a leader, will be propelled and success will be sustainable instead of a shooting star. So my question to you is, are you going to be willing to do this with your team? And if not, then you have to come to a validation within your own mind. Remember, we all have to validate ourselves. Every one of us lay our head down at night and we can sleep only for one reason. Because we justify whatever we do in our own mind. You have to justify it, right? If you don't justify it, then you're dealing with guilt, you're dealing with shame, you're dealing with a life that's wrong. You got to have a good conscience. So every one of us are looking at these, and we've got to validate in our own mind why or why not do we implement them in our own team. And if you can justify it in your own heart and your own mind, that's great, that's fine. But if you can't, you've got to ask yourself the why. Some people's whys, I'm going to end with this, is because they're lazy. Some people's whys is because they don't know how. So what do you do when you don't know how? You ask. You seek help. With this situation we're going through with all these children, what do I do with them? I need more money. One thing I hate about ministry is I need more money. I need at least $1 million more a year.
I'm with you.
And it's true. It's all about money. It's about working capital, and it's about money that you can use to spend for the cause. Somebody once said to me, well, it's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus and money. You can say whatever you want to say. I knew this church that flourished up in Watertown, New York. They bought an entire block, an old Boscovs. They bought an old Boscov. They put a FM radio station in there, and in less than 1 year had over 800 people. Well, why? Because they had over $1 million cash going in to start the church. That's what it is. So today, I'm still not sure what to do. I've talked to one of my oversight when I get done this class in 13 minutes. Not in 13 more minutes, but in 13 minutes, I'm talking with the bishop. And then I made a call today because I made a connection. And I made a call to Tommy Barnett. Because Tommy Barnett built a church of 18,000 doing exactly what we're doing. So who else knows how to do this besides Tommy Barnett? So I'm going to be talking to both of my oversights and then talking to Tommy Barnett. And he's graciously going to call me tonight. He said, no problem, I'd love to sit down and chat with you about this. I just find that as a phenomenal honor. And be able to get ideas on how to make it happen. So, what I'm saying, why are you validating yourself not to build the greatest team? And you've got to answer that yourself. Questions, thoughts? Yes. A little bit louder.
With all the rules and stuff like that whole thing, I think that's like the whole structure of any kind of ministry or business. And it's like the base of the structure of anything.
It is structure, but what happens is when you're building regular structure for a company or for a ministry, many times you're not getting into the depths of building successful teams. And this is another layer. There are so many different layers of leadership. And this is a whole nother layer. And really, it's the layer where the crux lies. Because the team that does not push the cause and have A game required, then the cause will never happen. And let's be honest, a lot of people have really good intentions, but no success. Good intentions never produce success. Thank you all for watching. I know this will be stimulating. If you'll be sending, you know what you should do is possibly show your leadership team at your church or in your business. You can actually YouTube this. It's you can watch it as many times as you want. And also the notes are available. You can use all of that. We've given credits where credit is due, dealing with the Orange Revolution. And so I challenge you to make sure that maybe you send this to another pastor or send this to another leader that you know this will help with. And if you're interested, you could also give us and contact us at histabernacle.com, or even better than, you could do empoweringpastors.com. And I would love to help communicate, build, strengthen, even come and teach this to your team. Have a great day.